Hello and welcome back to Widowed AF. You're here with me. I'm your host, Rosie Moss. Each week I bring to you a story from the coalface of widowhood. And today I have the UK's first widow coach. What an accolade, Karen Sutton. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, bless you. Thank you for having me.
That's all right. I just think that's so cool that you saw a gap in the market, or a gap in provision, shall we say, and you created it. And I really, really admire that. Now, Karen and I, we work in a very similar circle, right? We're both in grief. We both host podcasts. And yet our paths kind of hadn't crossed. And I've got massive imposter syndrome. I don't listen to other widow podcasts because it freaks me the hell out. So when we connected, we were like, oh my God, we have to talk. So Karen is here. She's going to talk to me about the death of her husband, Simon, because otherwise she wouldn't be in this club. And we're also going to talk a bit about the work that you've done since. So Karen, I've barely let you, I think I let you get one word in so far. I'll try and let you have a few more. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do, and tell me a little bit about Simon as well.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much. But first of all, I just want to say a huge congratulations to you for your podcast award. You are smashing it. And I know people, I hear people talking about your podcast in my communities. They love it. What you are doing is incredible. Like you say, I don't listen to your podcast because I think when you do one and you work in that space, like the last thing I want to do is listen to, and I'm not actually grieving anymore. Do you know, like I'm 9 years in, so it's not because I don't fully support you or think that you're rubbish or anything. I think you're amazing, and I just don't listen to other grief podcasts.
I get it though, because what we do is we are immersed in grief. We are, and we through the nature of the openness of our podcast, we talk a lot about it. We talk to other people about it, and I agree. I mean, I don't listen to my podcast back. That sounds awful, but I can't.
No,
I do the research, I do the interview, I do the clips, and then I think, well, actually, I can't go back into that because you have to, and it's something I learned probably about a year in, actually, is about that slight professional distance, because I want everybody to be my best friend that's been on the podcast. And don't get me wrong, some have become my close friends, but you kind of feel you have to pull back a little bit. I guess it's a bit like being a therapist, but without the qualification and payment.
Definitely, absolutely. And I hear you, and I'll probably get to it, but I did have a real difficult time last year, actually, in my journey, in that I didn't feel aligned with what I was doing and where I was in my life, because I'm not actively grieving anymore. I'm in a great place, and talking about grief and being in grief all the time became really hard for me, and I started to feel a bit of a disconnect, and I was like, oh God, I can't do this. It was bringing me down, and it wasn't aligned with where I'm at. So I kind of went on to do some other work, which I'm sure we'll get to it in our conversation. But I hear you. I think you have to look after your well-being when you're working in a space where you're holding space for others and you're immersed in grief and loss. It was having a huge impact on my health, anxiety, because I kept hearing stories of people dying, and that was feeding my fears. So I've had to balance it out, and you do that, but it's a shame, really, because in that trying to balance it out and give myself some space from it, I misconnected with amazing people like you that win awards for podcasts, which is just brilliant.
I'm going to do you know what? Of the episodes I record for like the first month after the awards, I'm going to get a count of how many times I managed to get it into a conversation.
Award. I won an award-winning podcast. Yay!
It's like you know me so well, Karen.
I know.
But I completely get that. And I think sometimes that being a little further through your journey means that you have that wisdom of hindsight. You made the mistakes, and therefore you can offer people support when they inevitably make their own. But I do understand that, not wanting to get stuck, because nobody wants to be stuck in their grief. We're all, let's be honest, we're all trying to figure out a way through it, because we know we can't escape it. And I do, I get that, I really do. And I was like, I don't want to get stuck in widow, and started another podcast, and but actually everything brings me back to this. And I just think it's so important that there are people like us out there who are sharing our stories. She says with a massive big head, but you know what I mean.
No, but I think you're right, and I think so many people show up in widowhood to support others when they're in it and they're navigating themselves, because actually it offers it offers your own, like, for me, supporting others, it's helped me in my healing. It's given me a sense of purpose and meaning. So as much as I have helped others, it's helped me.
Yeah.
But what I think happens a lot, and this is not a criticism or a judgment, but people get to a point in their grief where they go, I'm feeling better. I'm not in that space anymore. And they don't feel aligned with the work, and they might decide to do something else completely. But I feel really passionate that I want widows to see that there is life after loss. I want them to see people living. I don't want to walk away from it because my life is in a much better place, because otherwise the only people supporting people in widowhood are the ones that are still in it and in the pain of it and talking about that, which there's nothing wrong with that. And I was that person. And I did think, am I not the right person because I'm not in it anymore? But actually, what I believe is that, yes, I am the right person because I've been there and that I'm not in it anymore, but I am still here, and I am living proof that you can get to a place of inner peace, of joy, of happiness, of all of those things. And I didn't want to just pack up and walk away, but I can see why people do, because if that's all it's about, it becomes too much, and you don't want to keep living in that space when you're focusing on living, and there's this grief space. So I found that way of holding space for the grief, but also to focus on the living. And that's helped me continue. But I've gone way off track. You asked me a question.
No,
I haven't.
No, don't. Well, I love it. I ask the questions, we answer a different one. It's perfect. But I've written down and circled the word hope there, because one of the things I really struggled with when Ben died was the loss of hope. I had kind of had this mentality that I was surviving. I knew I was going to take care of my kids. I knew that, I'd get through life, if you like, but I had no idea that I'd enjoy it. Not all of it, but who enjoys all of their life anyway? Let's be honest.
Exactly.
And it's been tough, and it's the knock-on effects that that are still ricocheting through the family. But excuse me. But one of the kind of recurring bits of feedback I get is the hope. I've had people listen to the podcast whose partner has a terminal illness, because they know kind of what's coming, but they listen to prepare themselves, and also because in fact everybody that's come on the podcast has done a lot of work. They've done a lot of self-work, and they are living, breathing, walking, talking proof that being widowed doesn't destroy you. It might for a time, but it doesn't have to destroy you, forever. And I know myself, back then I needed to hear that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So Simon, oh, bless Simon. He was 43 when he died. It was a Sunday morning. It was the 11th of September, 2016. We'd had a boozy night the night before. We'd had some friends around. He'd fallen asleep on the sofa, and I went to bed and just left him there, because it used to really annoy me that when he got drunk, he fell asleep. I was like, oh, he's so boring.
And then snore.
Yeah, and I was taking pictures of it, sending them to my friends, going, look how boring my husband is. Anyway, I put the kids to bed. They were 9 and 5 at the time, our 2 girls. And I kind of woke up in the morning, and he was getting changed. But when you're a bit hungover and you're a bit blurry-eyed, and he was going off on his bike ride on a Sunday morning. I can't believe you're going on a bike ride. We drunk quite a lot, and they were good friends. We had a great afternoon. The children were well looked after, I promise.
No judgment
we weren't that drunk. And I could barely open my eyes, and off he was going on his bike ride, and I didn't really even look at him. I heard him downstairs, and the girls were like, where are you going, Daddy? And he's like, I'm going for a bike ride. And he made them a hot chocolate, and he said, when I get back, we'll go and see Cece, his mum. We wanted to go and see her. And I just kind of lay there, and do you know what, actually I'm quite grateful, because there was a huge possibility that I'd have said to him, cheers, like, I'm really tired and hungover, and you're going off, because these bike rides were like 4 or 5 hours long.
My dad's a cyclist, I know.
Yes. And sometimes it was a Sunday morning, that's half the day gone, and you just kind of go, really? Cheers. But luckily we didn't. He kind of laughed at me, and I just said, oh, good luck, and that was it. He was gone. So I managed to haul myself out of bed, got changed. I was hanging some washing out in the spare bedroom, and I heard we've got, like, it sounds much grander than it is, but we've got some gates at the front of the house, and I heard them buzzing. And I thought, that's strange. And I looked out the spare room window and I could see Mark, the top of Mark's head. Mark's the guy Simon went cycling with. And he didn't have a cycling helmet on. But Simon was quite short and the gates were kind of curved at the top. So I thought, well, maybe Simon's just stood next to him, but I can't see the top of his head because he's so little. So I went downstairs thinking, this is about 11:30. On the Sunday morning, thinking, that's odd. You know, they don't normally come back till sort of 12:30, 1-ish. Went downstairs, opened the gates. I opened the front door, and Mark was just walking towards me, just with this look on his face, and he kind of then brought his hands up over his mouth and nose. And I just remember looking at him, and I just went, is he dead?
Wow.
And he didn't know what he I don't think he confirmed it, but his face said it all. Mm-hmm. And I remember putting my hands on his arms and going, are you joking?
Yeah, of course, because do you know that's a sort of sick joke, right? But anything.
Yeah. It's like, are you joking? And he's like, I'm so sorry, Karen. And he kind of told me what happened. And you just go into that. It's such a weird moment. Like, what do you do in that moment? What you think you're going to do? And I panicked, obviously, and I was like, oh my God, the kids. And Mark had said the police were across the road and they wanted to talk to me. And I knew immediately I didn't want the police in the house because I didn't want them to scare the girls. So I came inside, I grabbed my phone. The girls were like, what's going on? What's going on? I was like, nothing. It's okay. Just watch telly. I'm just outside. I grabbed my phone. I phoned my mum. And I said, Mum, Simon's dead. You need to get here. What a terrible thing to do to your mother. Do you know?
But there's no time for courtesies and niceties, is there?
There isn't.
Immediate.
It is. And there's no like, Mum, I need you to sit down. And like, it just wasn't. It was, Mum, Simon's dead. You need to get. And she was kind of like, what? I said, Mum, just come. I need you to come because I need. I mean, how lucky am I that I was able to make that phone call and my mum was literally there in 5 minutes. She lives around the corner. Not only that, she phoned my sister. My sister turned up and my dad. Do you know that my mum and dad aren't together? And that's a blessing in disguise, really. So I made the phone call. I went out, spoke to the police. I decided I was going to tell the girls' daddy who'd been in an accident. He was in hospital because the last thing you want to do is tell your children. And I knew, I was a nurse. I was a midwife before Simon died. I know from my training, you tell people the truth. You don't mess but in that moment, you just lose all sense, don't you? Your mind doesn't think logically.
It's so familiar because, the police came to my door and I told the kids that the dog was in trouble. Like I just pulled something out of nothing because you need to process what you've heard and then you need to figure out how you're going to tell them because God knows, no matter how much medical training you can have, it's always somebody else. This has not come to your door before, right?
Absolutely that. And I did tell the girls in the end that day. I remember I just wanted to see Simon. I was like, I need to see him. Where is he? You know, that where is he? I need to see him. I need to be with him. And is he okay?
To prove it. To prove that it's happened.
That. And the police said, sorry, he's gone to it was a Sunday. He'd gone to the coroner's office or what, I don't know what you call them, but had to go to the coroner because it was an unexpected death on a young man. And I couldn't get to him. It's not open on a Sunday. Oh God. You're here telling me my husband's dead and I can't even see. Like, it was horrible.
So you can't die on a Sunday, essentially, is what we're saying.
No, don't die on a Sunday.
Don't die on a
Sunday. Nobody's allowed to see you on a Sunday, especially if it's unexpected. It's just mad, isn't it? And obviously that day, I had to go and tell my mother-in-law, to tell my children.
What was that like telling the girls? They were 9 and 5, weren't they? So really, actually really, really tough age that. Hector was 5, Monty was 7. And I think 9, they have got so much more kind of awareness and they kind of perhaps understand the finality of it, of what's happened. How did you
Yeah.
tell the girls? Are you comfortable talking about that?
Yeah, of course. So obviously my house had kind of filled up at this point,
Piccadilly
and
Circus.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And I said, I need to tell the girls. I'd spoken to the police and done all that. And my mum said, you can't tell them now. And I was like, I just have to. And she did try and talk me out of it, obviously from a place of love. I said, I have to. And I took them into the front room, and I just sat them down, and I said, look, girls, I've got something I need to tell you. Daddy was out on a bike ride, and his heart stopped working, and he's died. And my eldest, Sydney, was 9, and she just burst into tears. And I just hugged her and held her. My youngest, Ella, who was 5, didn't really know what to do with it, you know. And she obviously saw Sydney crying and said, don't worry, Sydney, I'm going to go and get some of Daddy's clothes, and I'll bring them down to you, which was just so cute. And my mum saw her coming out the front room, and I just sat on the sofa cuddling Sydney. And my mum took Ella upstairs, and they got Sydney actually some of her teddies and bought those down for her. And I just cuddled her, and I just sat with her. And do you know, I don't know. I think I was a bit numb. Yeah, and it's funny, really, because I do reflect on it, because people say to me it's the worst thing I've ever had to do. And I don't know that I can honestly say that, Rosie, because I don't know if
interesting.
It is, because in that moment, I think I went into, I've just got to do this.
Yeah. And the shock,
and I don't know that I really understood what it meant. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but you know, I hadn't had any, my grandparents had died, but nobody really close to me or young, you know, an out of order death had died. But when I think about what was the worst thing I ever had to do, that's not the thing.
What is the thing?
I think going, I eventually got to go and see him at the funeral home. And I have to say, I went in, I was with my dad, and I kind of went to go into the room. And the first thing I saw was his hands, because you know how they lie them out with their hands. And I could just tell by the colour of his hands that he was dead. I'd seen dead bodies before in my work. And I couldn't go any further. And I remember just going back to my dad, and I was just like, I can't do it. I can't go in there. He's dead. Like, I wanted to do it, but I couldn't do it. And my dad kind of looked me in the eyes, and he was like, you can do it. I'm here. And I think walking into that room and seeing Simon dead for the first time,
it's real.
Yeah. I think that was the worst thing. I think his funeral, the day after his funeral.
Oh, yeah.
Flipping heck.
Accompanied by a massive hangover? Mine was.
Oh, I probably, I don't know. I just remember, probably actually, it wouldn't have helped. But the aftermath, that telling the children that their dad had died, yes, it was an awful moment, but Jesus, there were moments that were so much harder than that in their grief and in my grief that were really bloody hard, like really hard. Do you know?
I do, because I think when you drop that bombshell, you think at the time as well, this is going to be the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I'm about to tell my children that one of their parents, somebody they love, trust, you know, believe will always come home to them, is not. And there's no warning, there's no preamble. I can't prepare you.
No.
And you think this is going to be the hardest thing. And, you know, it was bloody awful. But you're right. It's the stuff that comes later, because that initial shock is actually quite short-lived for children. I don't know about yours, but mine were instantly playing Harry Potter downstairs, and I thought they were psychopaths, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Yes, that.
And
they went off to the park with their cousins and their uncles, so I could go and tell Simon's mum, and they were quite happy. It's weird. They call it puddle jumping, don't they?
Yes, they do. Yeah. And then, of course, you've got all the school transitions, the relationship dynamics that they will struggle with, the attachment issues that they may and most will have going forward, because how can they trust that people will come back to them when one person they love didn't? And then that has an impact on us because we want to support them, but we become very much their entire support system for a long time.
Yes.
But yeah, I agree. I mean, I still feel that moment will forever be the moment that my life split into before and after.
Yes.
But yeah, the hard work certainly came afterwards because everybody was there as well. You know, there was so much support. There was people were bringing food and, hugging me. And then, of course, all the years that come later, you're very much on your own. And I'm not saying I haven't had support, but you do have to become your own support, really. I'm still looking for someone to come and hold my hand.
I know. And that's so true. And like you say, when it comes down to your children, they want you.
Yeah.
Do you know, like it does all fall on you. And as much as I had great support around me, I did, and they have great connections with family members and friends, but you're their only surviving parent.
Yeah. And they often want to be in your bed, so you don't even get that space. Currently.
Like that went on for years. And
Tabitha's 8 now. I'm like, come on.
Oh, well, you've got ages yet. I think it was senior school when my youngest
teenage,
was like,
it starts getting a bit weird, doesn't it?
This probably isn't very cool anymore. But yeah, it does. It continues on, and having a heartbroken child that you just don't know what to do with, that. And I think in that moment when I told them, yes, there were tears, but there was such a numbness, and a misunderstanding of the enormity of what was going on. I don't know why, but there was. I just
probably
went
your brain protecting you,
Yeah, and I just just start thinking, I've got to do this, got to do that, I've got to tell that person, can you go here, can you go there? What have I got to do next? You just but I remember just holding. I mean, Sydney didn't really outwardly grieve afterwards. She very much went inward. And shut down, which was difficult in its own way. Ella was very much an outward griever and would lose it and was inconsolable. And I didn't know what to do with her sometimes, and I couldn't.
You can't fix it.
Can't fix it. And that's the hardest thing, isn't
it?
As
a mother, you feel like that's your job and you couldn't protect them. I get it. I really get it. Your girls are a little older than my kids now, so they're teenagers, aren't they?
Yeah, they're 18 and 14 now.
How, again, if you're comfortable, because I know what teenagers can be like about their privacy, but how are they now? Because we talk about the kind of hope, and I'm thinking of, you back then, 9 years ago, breaking their hearts, for want of a better term. Wasn't you, obviously.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And now, how are they?
Amazing.
Oh.
They are amazing.
That's giving me goosebumps.
Honestly, they give me goosebumps. They blow my minds with their outlook, their approach, their resilience, their kindness. They are the most beautiful human beings. They're not perfect. They are also assholes. Am I allowed to say that on here?
Oh, of course you are.
They're kids, and they drive me nuts sometimes. My eldest has just done her A-levels. Bearing in mind, I don't know about you, but when this all happened, their learning just fell off the scale, right? They went backwards by 2 years. For 3 years, I'd say, before they caught up. But then they're just catching up. Do you know? Like, they're not where they could have been. But my God, we got her tutoring, and she got through her GCSEs brilliantly. She even got an 8, do you know? When she went to senior school, she was predicted 4s and 5s because she was just way off. And she worked really hard, Rosie. Like she is just, I don't know where she gets it from, but she's absolutely dedicated. She's so conscientious. She did her and she didn't have a great time at school. Do you know, it wasn't horrendous, but she just focused on her learning. She does She gets anxious. She likes her structure. She likes her routine. She likes to know what's going on. She worries about her health. She gets quite stressed. She lost a lot of her hair when she did her GCSEs and again when she did her A-levels. So there's underlying what I believe are trauma responses within her that come to the forefront. But what I didn't want, I remember saying this after Simon died, I didn't want his death to define mine and the girl's life in a negative way for the rest of our lives. Yes. And I was like, this is not going to become an excuse for us not to live our best lives. I do not want to hear any of my children go, oh, but my dad died.
No,
like that's not
I feel
a reason.
the same way. I feel the same way, and same expression. I knew we were kindred spirits. It's, you know, this terrible thing happened to you, but it doesn't define you and who you're going to become. And Monty, same. He really struggled. He was 7, and he really struggled going back into school. And then we had lockdown and house moves, and he went to secondary school, and he was, you know, he's a super bright kid, and he was struggling a bit. So I moved him to a very small school where he's doing his GCSEs this year. He's predicted great grades. And like you, to look at this strapping 6'2" enormous child and think, look who you are. Look who you might have been if you'd lent into that. And look who you are because of your strength of character. Yeah, it makes me just glow with pride.
It's beautiful, isn't it? And I do look at my girls and just think, I've still got both my parents. Do you know, I'm 48 years old. I've still got both my parents. And I'm so grateful for that. And I do look at my girls and I see them going through these life moments, pivotal moments. And I, you know, my daughter, for example, she went to do her A-level. She did politics, history, and Spanish. Now Simon was well into his politics. He
so was Ben.
Absolutely adored it. I haven't got a clue. I don't understand it. I don't follow it, and I don't really care much for it either. I think it's anyway that we will go down. But
it's another podcast.
Exactly. I don't want to get
Widows
into
talk
that.
politics.
It wouldn't be a very long conversation.
No, 10 minutes out of me max.
And I feel bad that, you know, what he could have offered her in you know, if he was still here and the conversations they could have had and what they could have shared, do you know, and celebrating her wins and watching both of them grow and turn into the beautiful people that they are turning into and becoming. And now she's taking a gap year, my eldest. She's going to uni next year. She's going off traveling, and he was a big traveler. He loved Thailand and Southeast Asia and India and all of that kind of stuff. And Sydney, and all of her anxieties and all of her liking structure and routine, she's going off on her own. She's got a few organised tours for 4 or 5 months and going to travel the world. And I just think, wow. Like,
I'm proud of her, and I don't know the kid. Like,
I'm actually quite envious.
Yes, I am.
Yeah,
a little trip out to Thailand to keep an eye on her, maybe.
You do. We're just making sure you're okay. And I wish he could see that, and I wish he could offer her what he would offer her, but he can't, and he's not here.
And the what ifs will kill you, won't they? If you keep
exactly. And I have to acknowledge that it's sad, but I also have to, for me, sit in there. This is bloody amazing, and what a beautiful life that we are living and going after. And I promised him at his funeral, he very much believed that if you want something in life, you go after it. You know, nothing is a given. Don't expect anything. Work hard for what you want and go out there and achieve it. He was a real go-getter. Before he died, I was a bit of a quitter. I was a bit lazy. I was a bit like, can't be bothered. It's too hard.
I was a different person.
Totally different person. And I was like, do you know what? I had to think of the qualities and the values that I admired and loved in him, that I wanted the children to know about. And I thought, well, if he's not here to impart that onto them, then I'm going to have to. So what can I do in my life? Because I really don't believe children don't do what you say, they do what you do. And I say this to my clients all the time. If you want to help your children, help yourself. You figure out how to support yourself, how to show up for yourself, how to be kind for yourself, how to figure out what you want from life, what you don't want from life, who you want to be. And let them see you doing that, and they will follow your lead.
And that's a really important message, actually, because you're right. For the first let's say, a year after Ben died, I was a mess. Like, I managed to run his business somehow. Like, I don't know
Wow.
how, but I was an alcoholic. It was all hidden behind a veneer because the kids got to school on time. They were reasonably well presented,
Yeah.
but there was nothing there. I was giving them the love, the essentials, but I knew that I needed to give them more. You know, they needed to see the world. They needed to have, and I don't mean Thailand, I'd love to, but camping, you know,
Absolutely.
festivals, days out.
Yes.
And Ben was very outdoorsy. So I got back in the water and we learnt to kayak together. You know, you have to push yourself a little bit. But every time I do something like that, I feel so proud of myself because, like you're bringing a bit of what their dad was into their world.
Yes.
But
that
yeah, like you, my
continues.
kids the boys were talking politics. No, they were talking history the other day, and I had no clue, so I just sort of kept out of it. And I've got walls of history books of Ben's, and I was just thinking, oh, he'd have had them going around the battlefields of France before they could even say the word World War.
It's mad, isn't it? It is mad, but yeah.
And how do you feel about that kind of weight of responsibility to be everything? Because obviously we have to become providers. Many of us will get life insurance, but for many it either won't be enough to sustain you or you won't be eligible. So at some point you have to, for most of us, we have to find employment or go back to work. We have to, but we also want to be there for our children. It's really tough, really tough. It's tough being a mum anyway, but being a completely solo parent, I've never known anxiety like it, I suppose, because you feel like it's all on you. Well, it is all on you, let's be honest.
It is all on you. It is. And much like you say, just for transparency, the first sort of 2 years after Simon died were a shit show. You know, I was drinking.
Do you see my picture? It says welcome to the shit show up there. Like, you're in good company.
I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I couldn't find the support I was looking for. I did have some counselling, which was helpful. But I was drinking a lot. I was partying a lot. I was dating. I was spending money. I was doing everything I could, thinking that something outside of me, was going to come and save me and make it all better. Until one Sunday morning, the girls came into my bedroom and I had a hangover, standard. And they came in and, what are we doing today, Mummy? I was like, I don't know, tired, go get some breakfast. And they stood there and they said, you're always tired and hungover. You never want to do anything at the weekends. And, you know, and you kind of go, oof, oh, okay, all right. So my children's father has died and their mum's turned into some kind of raging party animal, living in denial. This isn't what. So that was a huge wake-up call, among many other things. And I then decided to get some help because I knew I had to make some big changes. And like you just say, you suddenly realize that the buck stops with you. You know, you have to bring these children up. You have to provide for the household. You have to keep everything going. You have to live, find work, do all of it, right? The thing that you would share with somebody else and I felt so out of control and I had to figure out ways of pulling that back. And I have to say, Rosie, do you know, it's been years of work. It's been years of work. And I'm very lucky in that, you know, I met Andy 3 years after Simon died and he came into our lives. We haven't married. We're together. He's been great in helping and supporting me in building what I wanted to build in terms of becoming, you know, the widow coach and having the widow podcast and doing retreats and all that kind of stuff. I couldn't have done it without him. Yeah, I maybe have been able to use family members. I don't know, but still, even though he's part of our lives, it's still on me. You know, it's me that has to provide and support and be there and model and it does feel like a lot. And I think I struggled and I will continue to, because I don't know that ever, I think like we said before, I can't remember if we were on air or off air, but I don't believe that there's a point that you get to in life where you suddenly go, cool, I've got all my shit together. It's all sorted. I'm done. Everything's in control. I know who I am. I know where I'm heading. And I think I've found acceptance in that I just am constantly winging it. And I just have to keep learning to adapt and evolve. And when things get a bit too much, I find the way that I need to support myself. And I've always had some kind of coaching. I think, especially for me, to be able to hold space for others in the way that I do. I have to be able to support myself, but also to show up for my friends and my family. I'm not great at it. I'm not brilliant. I drop balls. My health has suffered. My health anxiety has been through the roof at times. But I think in life we're just constantly learning and evolving and adapting. And I don't know that ever stops. And I think the biggest thing that I've done that I think has helped me, that's been really transformational, is just being really bloody nice to myself. To stop with the negative language, with thinking that I'm not good enough, to kind of go, oh, Karen, you look awful. You're tired. You're a mess. You're getting it all wrong. You're eating really badly. You're not being a good enough mum. You're being a really bad friend. Everything's out of
Hang
control.
on, have you been in my head?
Because we do, right? You know, we look in the mirror. We're the worst. We're so critical and we're so down on ourselves. And I've changed that, Rosie. Like, I now look in the mirror, and I don't mean this in a cocky way. I share this in my groups, and I can see some people looking at me like, really? But I've learned, I didn't start by doing this, but I can now look in the mirror and I will say, yes, Karen, you are amazing. You are awesome. I love you. I've got you. I will show up for you. Let's do this. Let's go after life. Or if I'm having a low day, like, it's okay, darling. I've got you.
So
I can
you talk to
support
yourself
you
like you would a good friend or your own child, even. You kind of look after
like
yourself.
I love myself. And I actually feel
that's really big, isn't it?
Massive. It's been massive. I think it's one of the biggest changes now, don't get me wrong, that didn't happen overnight.
No,
because
and none of this does.
It doesn't. It takes a long time, and it takes a dedication and a consistency to it. And I think when you start to notice how much better you feel when you do things slightly differently, you naturally want more of it. I still catch myself looking in the mirror and going, oh, or I still, on a bad day be like, oh, Karen, what's wrong with you? Why have you done that? But I'll catch it. I'll notice it and I'll go, oh, hang on, stop it.
I did it myself. Before we came on air, I was setting up homeschool for my daughter. She didn't want to do it. And the adrenaline comes in. Like, I'm about to go to war, right? I'm talking to an 8-year-old about an online lesson. This is not war, but it triggers the same response. And then I start getting shaky and I'm like, I'm so tired. I can't do this. And I can't do this. And then I caught myself and I said, you're not tired. You had a good 8 hours sleep last night. You can do this. This is not war. If she doesn't do the online lesson, what consequence? It cost me £3.50. It's not the end of the world. And even in school runs, I would be so tense with anxiety about being late for school because I've got ADHD. So I'm late for everything, and it's I hate it. So I overcompensate, and then I'll be stuck in traffic, and I can feel that panic beginning to rise. What good does it do? I can't do anything about it. And it's baby steps. I don't catch myself every time, but I'm really trying this approach because.
Well done.
And again, it's that modelling, isn't it? I don't say it in front of the kids, I'm quite careful, but if you're sort of saying, I can't do this, I'm rubbish, and the kids pick up on it, well, that's how they think that you talk to yourself, right?
They do. And it normalises it for them.
Yeah.
It doesn't, and I don't want that for my children.
I want to be a positive person. I want to be.
And I think our language and our thoughts, honestly, they are so powerful, but noticing them is hard because we're so used to thinking and being a certain way. And actually,
absolutely.
When you start to create an awareness, you notice how you feel in response to how you speak to yourself, the words that you use, you just kind of go.
I'm actually kind of a bitch to myself.
Yeah. So, yes, I do find it hard, but I also kind of go, do you know what, Karen, you're doing amazing.
Yeah.
You're doing really well. You're not perfect, but you don't need to be. And you're doing your best. And that is absolutely good enough. And do I get it wrong sometimes? Yes, I do. But I'll just go, do you know what? I'm human and I got it a bit wrong and I tried and I'm sorry. And I think if you approach I'm not going to say everything because that isn't practical, but if you approach most of what you do with love and kindness and compassion and the people that you're with, and you're just honest and transparent, and when things are going great, good, but when they're not, just go, they're not going so great at the moment, I'm not quite as on it. Well, what's the word?
And most of the time people are quite responsive as well. I've found if I lower that mask and say, actually, I might have all this amazing, incredible, exciting things going on in my life, but I'm still very scared, very lonely, and feel very out of my depth, actually, a lot of the time. But I am doing a good job. I know I am, because I've got 3 kids who are happy and healthy and well-rounded,
There you
and,
go.
the house hasn't burnt to the ground. So,
Yes.
we are doing great. It's just, it's not the life I expected to lead.
No.
It's not. And it's making peace with that and accepting that it might not be what you expected, but it still can be pretty good.
I think so. And I think we have to let go of expectation.
Yeah,
Do you know, I think I've really had to learn to let go of what I thought my life would look like, what I maybe wanted it to look like, and lean more into, okay, what does it look like? And what can I do with what I've got and make it the best that I can?
And all your priorities change, don't they? Things
do.
like, expensive handbags, or, that ceases to have any importance. I never thought I'd go camping, but my financial circumstances changed. I went camping this summer. I had a bloody brilliant time. I think I enjoyed it more than the kids.
I love that. I love back to basics. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for it.
It was a pre-pitch tent. Let's again, in the spirit of being honest. I
was just about to say, I love camping, but I've got a caravan, so
I'm very tempted to hire a camper van next summer and have a go in one. I don't think I'd ever buy one, but I'd like to have a go in one.
Oh, do it.
Anyway, back on topic. I wanted to ask you. So in these weeks, months, years after Simon died, you probably, like me, found there was very little support unless you paid for counselling. I found for my children there was very limited support. There were some great charities and they do a wonderful job, but there isn't enough, and there isn't, and what's available is so short term,
Yeah.
So what prompted you to want to work in the sphere of widowhood and to kind of help people? There's a lovely term one of my guests used, and I totally stole it, and it's called being a grief Sherpa, which I really like.
What's that?
So you kind of take your experience of grief and you guide people through it. So I think it's lovely.
Oh, love that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can have that one on me.
Grief Sherpa. I love it. So I think after Simon died, it was messy. It was chaotic. You know what it's like. You're scrabbling around in the dark for any little bit of information, hope, connection. The first thing I needed to do was find somebody else that had lost a husband, that had young kids. I was just like, somebody. I was putting notes out on Facebook, like somebody must know somebody. And I did find someone, and connected with her. And I did join, the big kind of peer support groups of charities and stuff that are out there. And it was helpful in that there was a space where people shared their experience, and that people were able to normalize and validate what I was feeling. People were able to articulate things that I hadn't quite figured out yet. And it was helpful on that front. But I wanted more than that, Rosie. I was like, I don't want to just sit in this space and talk about how shit it is. Not that that's not valuable. It is. It really is. But what do we do with it? I need some tools. I need some education. I need some knowledge, some strategies. Like, I knew, I could said to you, and you'd said it as well, I don't want this to define my life in a negative way. I want to find a way to live. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know what on earth to do with all of these big feelings and emotions that I was experiencing. I didn't know how to be a solo parent. I didn't know anything, and I was just looking. And yes, I went to counselling. It was brilliant. Yes, I found the peer support groups brilliant, but I wanted more. And this was 9 years ago. I don't think there was as much out there as there is now. I think it's definitely got better over the years, and maybe there was more than I was finding at the time. Research isn't my strong point.
No, we didn't have ChatGPT then, did we?
Didn't have ChatGPT. No, exactly. And eventually, I think it was about 2.5 years in, I got myself. I was in such a bad place. Not terrible like at the beginning, but just wanted to be better than I was. And somebody said to me about a life coach. I was like, what's a life coach? I've never heard of one of them before. And it was really expensive. And I thought, this has got to be an American thing. I didn't understand it. Anyway, best thing I ever did. And this life coach gave me tools, strategies, mindset shifts. It gave me an awareness and understanding about my mind, how it works, what I was doing, how I was thinking, the actions I was taking, what I could do to change those things. And in 6 months, honestly, I had turned my life around.
Wow.
Completely turned my life. And I don't mean that it was perfect and that everything was figured out, but I felt more in control. I was like, this is what I wanted. This is what I needed
Control.
at the beginning, alongside everything else in the grief support. And I couldn't find it for love nor money. And it was in that space I thought, if I've done this, I was 39 when Simon died, so I was 42 3 years later. I had the girls still. I had no business acumen. I didn't really know what I was doing. And I just thought, I don't know how this is going to work, but if I can find a way forward with what I've learned, then I can help others do the same, because I'm no different to anyone else. And I just wanted to give people what I was looking for, because if I was looking for it, surely other people were looking for it as well. That a space that held you in the discomfort and the pain and the heartache of your grief, that understood it and gave you some hope, gave you some inspiration, some motivation, cheered you on, a space where you could go, I'm doing all right. And there's a lot of this narrative around it's okay not to be okay, you know, the very famous Megan Devine book, which is brilliant. Right? But I also want to be a bit of a what's the word I'm looking for?
Devil's advocate.
Yeah. I want to let people know, I suppose. I want to stand in that space of it's okay to be okay as well. Like, I want to do both, because it is. And I think so many people are afraid to be okay after they've lost that person. They're afraid they're going to lose their love for them. They're afraid it's going to be deemed as disloyal, that they're going to lose that connection. You know, those continuing bonds are so important. How can I allow myself to be happy when my person isn't here and alive anymore?
Not shame and guilt.
There's so much wrapped up in that. And whilst I understand it, people don't have to stay there. Do you know? And I think when we educate ourselves and when we see other people, we normalize the fact that, grief is shit. Is the most horrendous thing. It really is. And we need so much help and support. We can't do it on our own. It takes longer than you want it to take. It's harder than you think it's going to be. All of that, you know. And I want to hold space for that, because it's important. And I also want to let people see that grief is a powerful place. It's a transformative portal of self-discovery and growth. And
a transformative portal of self-discovery and growth. That is a powerful message, Karen, actually, because I've never heard grief spoken about like that. I only ever hear of it in that negative connotation, you know, and that, you know, life altering in a negative way. But and I struggled very much, and we spoke about it to be a messenger about the guilt I felt, because I'm getting the awards in again, podcast awards. But I got to do that. I got to be there because I created something that I would never have created had my husband not died. Exactly. So, and you find yourself questioning, am I allowed to enjoy this? Am I allowed to be happy about this? Yeah, you are. It's okay, right? And it's absolutely that coexisting with the grief and the happiness around it. I mean, there's a lovely picture I'm sure I've seen. But I think that's a really powerful message, that you might come out of this actually stronger.
I honestly, I think, and I don't just think that because I've had clients that have come into my world and what they have gone on to learn about themselves, to discover about themselves. Grief cracks you wide open, right?
Yes.
It does. Yes. You feel vulnerable, exposed, anxious, fearful, afraid, all of those things. Your life has been shattered into a million pieces. You don't know where to start putting them back together. And you've no idea that even if you manage to put these pieces back together, what on earth is it going to look like? Right. And that's a scary place to be. Of course it is. And that needs acknowledging, that needs time, that needs space, that needs healing and releasing and all of that kind of stuff. But in that time that you are trying to put these pieces back together into something that might resemble some kind of life, you are discovering parts of yourself that you never knew existed. You are learning about how you think. You are learning about how you feel. Your whole world changes. What you enjoy doing, who you enjoy being with, things that you enjoy talking about, you know, your spare time, what you watch on the telly, what you eat for your dinner. It impacts every single corner of your universe. So, and in order to learn to live alongside your grief, you have to grow around it, do you know? And in that growth around it, you are finding things out about life and about yourself that blow your mind, that you go, oh my God, like, yes, this is really sad that I'm discovering this in this space, because, you know, people say to me, but if he hadn't died, I wouldn't have it. And, my response is, no, don't say that. I don't think about what I have in terms of, well, it's a trade-off. Because Simon died, I've got all of this stuff. Because actually, that's taking my power away. Simon died, okay, tragic, sad, always will be really sad. I had choices after he died. I had millions of choices that I could have made that would have taken me in millions of different directions. And actually, it's in the choices that I chose to make after he died that got me to where I am. And I'm proud of that. And I'm grateful for those things. And actually, you know, I am really sad that Simon died. I always will be. And I'm really grateful for what I learned in my grief. And I have learned so much that I can't imagine living without, and I don't want to. And you said to me when we came on this call, I'm so sorry that you're here. I'm not. Do you know? And that might be really difficult for people to hear and understand, but I'm not sorry I'm here. And I'm not sorry because I can't change the fact that Simon died. If I could have done, I would have done. I can't. And I have chosen to do the work, to show up for myself, to invest in myself, and do what I needed to do to create a life within myself as well as around myself, and a reality that feels good. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for everything that I now have. Would I have those things had he lived? I don't know. I can't answer that question, but I think it's okay to go, this is good. This is good.
And it's look what we've done in spite of it, isn't it? You know, it's, you talk about the choices, and every decision, every I'm sure, like me, there's been sometimes you've been, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it today. I can't do it today.
Absolutely.
But you do it, and the reward, whether it be financial success, whether it be the podcast, whether it be the told you I'm on a webcam.
I love it.
Whether it be the kind of the impact that you're having on people around you, because like, you know, the messages when they come through, you think, oh my God, like I had no idea that I was making that difference. And that is a choice that you make, isn't it? You're not going to, it's not going to happen by lying in your bed. It's not.
No, you've made that choice. You've done that. And yes, I know people will say, but you wouldn't have made that choice if your husband had lived. Well, no, but you had no control over that. We can't control who lives and who dies and when and how all these things happen. You know, you don't have control over those things. And this is it. You have to control what you can control. You have to focus on the things that you are able to have some power over. And I have none over Simon's death. And some people might think I'm being flippant or sort of caring. I'm not, you know. I've been in those really dark places. I haven't even known if I'd wanted to continue sometimes, you know, because it was too hard and it was really dark and horrible for a very, very long time. But I didn't want to stay in that space. So I made the choices, and I learned about the brain and how it rewires. I learned about human beings and how we are built for survival. I learned about grief. I've immersed myself in it for years. I've read the books. When I was grieving, I listened to the podcasts and the YouTube channels, and I did all the training things and the audiobooks. And I've obviously supported hundreds of women all over the world, and I listened to them and their experiences. And, you know, what I want to normalize is that grief can actually be a really beautiful thing, as well as a really heartbreaking, awful thing. And I want to give that part of grief more of a voice.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it in so many people. They have created something so meaningful, so purposeful after loss that is just incredible and brings them so much in life. They feel richer because of the experience they've been through. That it's enriched their lives. It's enriched their lived experience. And I think it's okay to kind of acknowledge that and say that out loud, because there can be shame in it. I can't say that. My person died. That sounds really insensitive. That sounds really like you just don't care and you're glad that they died because you've got all this stuff out of it. It doesn't mean that. Don't make it mean that. It just means that you kind of go, I'm allowing myself to learn and grow and live after loss. And isn't that what life's all about?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, within your the support that you offer, how does it work? Is it in person? Is it online? How would somebody access what you offer?
So I have I have a number of offerings. So I've got my membership, remember, which is an online worldwide community where we meet. It ranges from once a week to 3 times a week, depending on what's going on. I run that alongside Orla Blackburn, who's already been on your podcast.
Yeah.
She's gorgeous.
I love her.
She's amazing, and she brings in her grief movement side to it in a meditation. I host sessions on, sort of topics around widowhood. We have music nights. We have a lovely lady that comes in and does the Zentangle drawings, which is a bit mindful and creative. And that's just a really lovely supportive community with, subjects for people early on in their grief, topics for people further on in their grief. We talk about dating, in-laws, just anything.
Amazing. And can people kind of dip in and out? Well, you pay your membership, you can kind of dip in and out as much as you like.
Absolutely.
That sounds wonderful. I'd have loved that back in the day. That would have been a lifeline to me.
It is, because it's kind of that support, but with the information a little bit, but not too much.
So it's not just other people. Don't get me wrong, the peer-to-peer support that you get in Facebook groups and things is lovely and it's very powerful. But sometimes you can receive misinformation, not with any intention. And to have that kind of backing up of it, this is why you feel like this. That people do need that, don't they?
You do. And then I've got an 8-month program, Finding Hope in Widowhood, which is a much deeper dive. It's much more structured. There's modules in there. There's bonus sections. You've got guest speakers, again, Orla Blackburn being one of them. Holly Matthews, Julie New, a lot of widows in the grief space that have their own expertise. Emma Gray, I think you've had Emma Gray on as well.
Yes, I have had Emma on. I've had Emma stay at my house.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. So they come in as well, and we have mentors that create smaller support groups, and that's a real deep dive into grief. It's a really beautiful blend of grief work and personal development work, and it will help you through your grief and your widowhood, but equally you'll be able to take it forward with you because it helps you in life to be resilient. And I've got retreats and in-person events that I run all over, and the new arm to my business now is kind of I have something called Vibrant Living program and Rise and Renew retreat, which is for widows, but it's not grief support, it's living support. And I've trained as a master intuitive psychology coach, which is just the most beautiful work I have ever done. It's transformative. It really is. It's a real inner journey, to the essence of who you are, and it helps you sort of remove any blocks. There's a lot of like inner child work, shadow work.
Karen, when do you sleep?
I know. It is a lot. But I love it. And I have a great team around me now that help me.
This is amazing. So just for listeners, just tell me your Instagram, website, where people can find you. I will put it in the show notes as well.
Yeah, so I'm Karen Sutton Widow Coach on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all of that kind of good stuff. Or there's my website, karensutton.co.uk.
Fantastic. Karen, it has been really, really lovely to kind of meet. Karen and I were both at Carfest in the summer holidays, weren't we? And we managed not to see each other. There was no Wi-Fi signal. Nobody. I would have tried to message you, couldn't get in touch with anyone. Are you going to go next year?
I'm hoping so, yes, because they moved it, haven't they?
They have, yeah. Yes. I think I might. I really enjoyed it, but I think I probably will. And I'm saying these on mic, so I might be committed. I might camp this time. But I really enjoyed it. You know what it was? It was the bloody walk from the car park. I was like, sod that, I'm camping next year.
It's a fair old walk from the campsite.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
How do we speak to Chris Evans about some little backstage
passes? Yeah, get in there.
It's been phenomenal. I feel like I've met a real kindred spirit. Everything you've said to me, I'm like, yes, I'm making notes. Like you've taken this tragedy, this awful thing, and you have turned it into something that not only is helping hundreds, if not thousands of other people, it's helping you and your family.
Yes.
And I just love it when I speak to people who've made this choice, that they're going to lead by example, that they're going to show their kids or their friends, their family, whoever it may be, that they're not done yet. We're not out yet.
Not out yet. I'm going after it all. I want to
Fingers crossed. We've got a fair few years to go.
Exactly.
Never take it for granted these days.
Bless you. Thank you, Rosie.
And best of luck with all your retreats. I know you're doing something at Christmas time, which I'm hoping to maybe come along to, because I really love to meet people in person. I don't know when this will go out, but at the time of recording my retreat, my first one is in 2 days, and I'm absolutely breaking it.
Wow.
But,
oh my God. That's amazing.
It'll either be amazing or
of course
people money.
It'll be amazing. Honestly, I think when you bring widows together in a safe space, that's just magical. It really
and they
is
sound,
magical.
everybody seems really lovely. So I will let you know. And best of luck to you. And thank you once again for coming on. For listeners out there, please do get in touch if you've got any questions. You can give Karen a follow. She's got loads of, as she's just explained, she's got loads of resources available. And best of luck to everybody out there as well. Whatever you're going through, however you're feeling, you are in good company here.
Yes.
So it's goodbye from me. Goodbye from Karen.
Lots of love. Take care.
Take care out there, guys. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening. If you found this episode helpful, hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you think someone else may benefit from this, please do share. We'd also really appreciate a quick review. It helps more people find the show. Thank you again, and see you next time on Widowed AF.